The conference room was nearly empty when Ella walked in, holding a stack of printed slides close to her chest like a shield. It was early morning, and the staff was still setting up chairs. She kept her head down, avoiding eye contact, just like she always did. Talking made her nervous. Being seen made her feel exposed. She was the kind of girl who said sorry even when no one was looking at her. Ella was 22, quiet and smart, painfully smart. She had just started as a junior assistant at a major tech event, the kind where powerful people gave big talks and left behind even bigger impressions. Her job was simple: copy slides, check connections, and stay out of the way. And she was good at that. Invisible, reliable, quiet. This particular morning, there was a name she didn't recognize on the schedule. Reeves. No photo, no bio. Just a name slotted to speak before the final keynote. Her supervisor, a sharp-tongued woman named Dana, handed her a thumb drive and said, "Put this in Hall 3's main system. Check if the slides load properly, and make sure there are no spelling mistakes this time." Ella nodded quickly, taking the drive without saying a word. She hurried through the backstage halls, past cables and boxes, toward the small tech booth in Hall 3. The room was empty, echoing with the hum of overhead lights. She climbed behind the control desk, plugged in the drive, and waited. The screen flickered. Then it loaded. What came up surprised her. It was a powerful, emotional presentation about identity, grief, and finding meaning after loss. It didn't have corporate graphs or glossy branding. It had photos, raw, human photos, of hospital rooms, old letters, a small dog, streetlights glowing under rain. And one slide said only this: "What do we leave behind when we think we've lost everything?" Ella felt something stir in her chest. The presentation wasn't just content, it was honest. She moved through the slides carefully, checking for errors, and that's when she found it. Slide 14, a quote misattributed to the wrong author. Then slide 22, a photo slightly stretched, making the face look unnatural, and slide 27, the text overlapped, unreadable. Most people might have shrugged it off, but Ella couldn't. Her brain wouldn't let her. Mistakes made her anxious, not because she feared punishment, but because she believed in doing things right, even if no one noticed. So she fixed them, carefully, respectfully. She adjusted the formatting, added the correct name to the quote, resized the image, and even softened the brightness on one of the darker photos so it wouldn't glare on the big screen. She didn't change anything major. She didn't add her name. She just made it better. Then she saved the file, replaced the original, and left the booth as quietly as she came. What Ella didn't know was that someone had seen her. Not a staff member, not a manager, not even the speaker coordinator, but the man who had walked in early, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses even though he was indoors. He had been sitting in the back row, unnoticed, watching her work. And as she left the room, brushing hair behind her ear and walking quickly like she wanted to disappear, he whispered to himself, "She saw it." Hours passed. The conference came alive. Guests in suits and lanyards filled the rooms. Cameras rolled, microphones buzzed. Ella stayed backstage, doing her job silently, unnoticed in a crowd of louder, more confident people. Then the moment came. "Please welcome our next speaker, Keanu Reeves." The crowd erupted. People stood. Phones were raised. The room pulsed with excitement. Ella froze. Keanu Reeves, she thought, her eyes wide. That Reeves. She peeked from the curtain and saw him walk calmly to the stage, dressed in black, humble, soft-eyed. He looked nothing like the movie star posters from years ago. He looked human. As he reached the podium, he adjusted the mic and smiled. "Before I start," he said, "I want to thank someone." The room grew quiet. "This morning, someone made a few quiet edits to my slides. They didn't know who I was. They weren't asked. They just saw something broken and fixed it. Respectfully, gently. I don't know their name. But if they're listening, thank you. You made this better." Ella's hands shook. No one turned to look at her. No one knew. But she did. He began. His talk. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was honest. Raw. He spoke about his personal loss, about disappearing from the spotlight, about the quiet pain that lives behind smiles. And the entire room listened like they had never listened before. Ella stood in the wings, barely breathing. This man, who had lived through storms, was standing there, not pretending to be a hero, but simply sharing how he had survived. And he had thanked her. After the talk, the room exploded in applause. People stood, clapping, some even crying. Ella stayed hidden. Her heart was racing, not because of fame, not because she wanted credit, but because, for once, she felt seen. Not by the crowd, not by the cameras, by someone who understood the power of quiet care. That night, as the halls emptied and the lights dimmed, Ella gathered her things. She walked alone through the service hallway, past crates and wires, toward the back exit. And there, leaning against the wall, was Keanu Reeves. He was holding a small bag and a coffee cup. When he saw her, he smiled gently. "You're the one, aren't you?" he asked. Ella froze. I didn't mean to change anything. You made it better," he said. She looked down, unsure what to do. "What's your name?" he asked. Double quotes Ella, she said quietly. He handed her the bag. "Then this is for you, Ella." Inside was a notebook, leather-bound, old, worn at the edges. She opened it. On the first page was a single line, written in soft handwriting. "You don't have to be loud to change the world." Ella blinked, stunned. Keanu nodded. "You reminded me why I speak at all." Then he walked away, leaving her alone in the hallway, holding the notebook to her chest. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know that her name would soon echo in circles far beyond the conference, or that someone had recorded her fixing the slides and would post it online, or that a movement would begin from that single, quiet act. But for now, Ella stood in the silence, heart full, and somewhere inside, something had changed. She wasn't just the shy girl anymore. She was the girl who made things better without needing anyone to know. Ella didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed with the notebook on her chest, staring at the ceiling. She had read the first page over and over again. "You don't have to be loud to change the world." Her heart kept repeating those words. They felt like a doorway to something bigger, something she never thought she deserved to step through. The next morning, when she arrived at the conference center, everything felt different. People were talking about Keanu Reeves' speech. Clips were spreading online. His words had hit something deep. One part in particular was going viral. Someone fixed what was broken, without expecting praise. And that, to me, is heroism. Ella walked through the halls with her head slightly higher than usual. She didn't speak. She didn't tell anyone. But inside, something had started to bloom. Quiet confidence. By noon, whispers began. "Did you hear about the girl who fixed his slides? They say someone did it without knowing who he was. Keanu's calling her his silent partner." Ella kept her head down, still invisible, but this time, with purpose. Later that afternoon, she returned to Hall 3 to clean up cables. When she entered, she found the space empty, except for one man sitting near the front, reading from a tablet. He looked up and smiled. "You must be Ella," he said. She blinked. "How do you know my name?" He walked over and extended his hand. "I'm David. I work with Keanu. He told me about you." Ella hesitated before shaking his hand. It felt strange, like stepping into a world she never expected to touch. "He wants to meet again," David said, "not for press, just to talk." Ella's heart pounded. "Why me?" David smiled. "Because you noticed what others missed. That's rare. And Keanu, he remembers people like that." They arranged to meet after the closing ceremony. Just a short coffee meeting in a quiet corner. No cameras, no media. That evening, Ella sat across from Keanu at a small table near the back of a quiet cafe. He wore a sweater and jeans. He looked nothing like the movie star, just a thoughtful man with kind eyes and a slow, calm voice. "I've spoken at many places," he said, "but this time felt different. And I think it's because someone cared enough to fix the little things." Ella blushed. "I just couldn't ignore the mistakes. You saw the heart in it," he said, "and you protected it." She didn't know what to say. She had never heard anyone describe her that way. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small white envelope. I wanted to ask you something. He said, something serious. Ella's breath caught. I'm working on a new project. Keanu continued, it's not a film. It's not for the public. It's something personal. It's a presentation for a group of students, kids who've gone through tough times, foster homes, loss, trauma. I speak to them once a year. But this time, I want to make it better, more human. He slid the envelope across the table. Would you help me build it? Ella opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten outline, notes, questions, themes, not fancy, but filled with feeling. One page had a list of topics like, how to keep going when you feel invisible, where to find light, when everything feels dark, the importance of one kind voice looked up. You want me to edit this? I want you to shape it, he said. You see things others don't. You find what needs care. Ella was quiet for a long time. Her hands trembled slightly. I'm not important, she whispered. I don't have credentials. I'm not a speaker or a writer. Keanu leaned in gently. You're the reason people like me sound better. She stared at the papers. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe her quiet nature wasn't a weakness. Maybe it was her gift. She nodded slowly. Okay, I'll try. He smiled warmly. That's all I need. The next few weeks were unlike anything Ella had ever experienced. She worked after hours, shaping Keanu's ideas, adding stories, polishing visuals. He trusted her completely, never questioned her choices. He called her his soft editor. They met twice a week, not in big meetings, but in quiet spaces, cafes, bookstores, parks. They talked not just about the project, but about life. Ella learned that Keanu had known loneliness, deep, painful loneliness, and yet he carried himself with calm. One day, as they sat on a park bench under a gray sky, Ella asked him, how do you stay so kind when you've lost so much? He thought for a moment. Kindness is the only thing I know that never leaves you but stays, even when people don't. Ella nodded, writing the line down in her notebook. Weeks passed, and the presentation took shape. It was simple, heartfelt, real. On the day of the event, Ella sat in the back of the auditorium, heart racing. The kids looked tired, some guarded, some curious. These were children who had seen too much, too young. Keanu stepped on stage, holding a single card and nothing else. His first words were, someone once told me you don't have to be loud to change the world, and I want to pass that to you. He spoke gently, honestly, and when he finished, the room was still. Then a boy in the second row stood up and asked, who told you that? Keanu smiled and pointed to the back of the room. She did. All heads turned toward Ella. She froze, stunned. People clapped for her. Ella had never been clapped for in her life. Afterward, the children came up to her, one by one, thanking her. Some asked if they could write in her notebook. She let them. That night, as she walked home, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Keanu. You're not shy, Ella. You're steady, and that's rare. She stared at the message for a long time, then looked up at the stars. She still wasn't used to being seen. But for the first time, she wasn't hiding anymore. And someone the world loved, had seen her not as a quiet girl, but as someone who mattered. What Ella didn't know was that the presentation had been recorded quietly by one of the staff at the youth center, and they had uploaded a clip with the caption, he said the words, she wrote them, together. They healed us. It was spreading. And soon, the world would come calling again. 3 days after the youth center event, Ella was back in her tiny apartment, sorting laundry. When her phone buzzed again, she glanced at the screen, expecting a message from her mother or maybe a reminder from the grocery app. Instead, it was a notification from an account she didn't recognize at Humanstoriesco. The message read, Hi Ella. We just watched the clip from Keanu Reeves' youth talk. Your name came up. We'd love to feature you. May we speak? Ella's heart skipped. How did they find me? She wondered. She clicked the link attached to the message. It led to a popular online platform that shared real, heartfelt stories from around the world. They had millions of followers. Some of their short films had changed lives. One even helped raise money for a burned-down school in India. They wanted to talk to her. At first, Ella panicked. She paced her room. Her anxiety came rushing in, flooding. Her thoughts. What if she sounded foolish? What if she froze on camera? What if she didn't have anything special to say? She almost said no. But then she remembered what Keanu had told her. You don't need to be loud. Just be true. So she wrote back, I'm not used to being seen. But yes, I'd like to share. The video call happened 2 days later. Ella sat at her desk, wearing a soft gray sweater, hair tucked behind her ears. The interviewer, a kind woman named Leah, smiled warmly through the screen. Thank you for agreeing to this. Leah said, we're not trying to make you famous. We just want people to feel something real. Ella nodded slowly. I think real is all I have. And then she told her story. She talked about working behind the scenes, about her love for details, about how she felt most herself when no one was watching. She shared how she found Keanu's broken slides, how she fixed them quietly, and how she had no idea who he was until he stepped on stage. She also shared how she used to think kindness only mattered if people noticed it, and how now she knew the opposite was true. The quietest kindness might matter most. When the interview ended, Ella thought that would be it. Just a short video online. Maybe a few people would watch, leave a kind comment, and move on. She didn't expect what came next. By the following morning, the video had 1.4 million views. People from all over the world were writing in. A teacher from Greece. I showed your story to my students today. We talked about invisible heroes. Thank you. A woman from Kenya. I've always been the quiet one. You gave me pride in my silence. A father in Brazil. My daughter is like you. She feels invisible. I showed her your interview. She cried. Now she wants to write her own story. Ella scrolled through the comments in disbelief. She had never received this kind of attention. Never had strangers call her brave. But it wasn't just strangers watching. Back in Los Angeles, the board of a global nonprofit saw the video, and they saw something in Ella they couldn't ignore. A week later, she received an invitation. Dear Ella, we host an annual summit called Voices That Ripple. It brings together changemakers, artists, and thinkers from around the world. This year, we want you to open the event, not as a performer, just as yourself. Ella sat in silence for a long time, reading the letter again and again. Open the summit, she called Keanu immediately. I can't do this, she said, her voice shaking. You can, he said calmly, and you won't be alone. So they worked together. Ella didn't want a speech filled with big words. She wanted to speak the way she always had, simply, honestly, from the heart. The day of the summit arrived. She walked onto the stage, wearing a soft blue dress, her notebook tucked in one hand. She looked out at the crowd, hundreds of faces from different countries, all waiting. Her hands trembled. Then she opened the notebook, found her page, and began. Hi, she said. My name is Ella. I fix things, not machines or cars, just small things, slides, words, colors, moments. The crowd leaned in. I didn't know who Keanu Reeves was when I fixed his presentation. I just saw something that needed care. I thought no one would notice, and that was okay. Because for me, kindness doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs a chance. She paused, swallowing back emotion. But that one small moment opened a door. Not to fame, not to riches, but to something bigger, connection. I've met children who felt forgotten, mothers who felt invisible, strangers who told me I reminded them of their quiet selves. And I think that's the gift we forget we can give. She closed the notebook. You don't have to be loud to matter. You just have to notice what others miss and choose to care. The room erupted in applause. Some people stood. Some cried. Ella stepped down from the stage, her face flushed, her heart pounding, not from fear, but from something new, a sense of belonging. After the event, a woman approached her. She wore a tailored suit and had a softness in her eyes. I work with youth in Eastern Europe, she said. We don't need more loud leaders. We need gentle ones. Would you come speak to our girls? Ella hesitated, but something inside her said yes. So she did. In the months that followed, Ella traveled more than she ever dreamed. She spoke in classrooms, shelters, bookshops, and community centers, always with the same message: quiet matters, kindness ripples, invisibility is not failure. One night, as she sat in a quiet hotel room after another talk, Her phone rang. It was Keanu. "Guess where I am?" he asked. "Where?" "At the same conference hall, booth 3. The place we met." Ella smiled. "Feels like a lifetime ago." "Because it was the start of something real," he said. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you," Ella whispered, "for seeing me before the world did. You helped me speak," he said. "Now the world is listening to you." But what neither of them knew was that something else was about to happen. A quiet girl from the past, someone who once sat next to Ella in high school, had just watched her summit talk, and she was about to post a video that would reveal something Ella never saw coming. Mila had been scrolling on her phone late into the night when the thumbnail caught her eye. "Quiet girl who helped Keanu Reeves now teaches kindness worldwide." At first, she nearly kept scrolling, but something made her pause. Ella. She hadn't heard that name in years. Back in high school, Mila and Ella had shared the same math class. Mila had been the popular one, loud, confident, always surrounded by friends. Ella had been the opposite, soft-spoken, sitting at the edge of the classroom, always writing in her notebook. Mila hadn't paid her much attention back then. In fact, if she was honest, she remembered whispering things behind Ella's back, calling her weird, even laughing when others did. Mila tapped the video. And within the first minute, she felt something stir in her chest. Guilt. Ella stood on stage, holding her notebook like a fragile gift. Her voice was calm, steady, full of something Mila never noticed before: strength. As the video played, Mila sat frozen. When it ended, she whispered to herself, "I was wrong about her." She opened her video app, took a breath, and recorded herself in a single, unedited take. "Hi, my name is Mila," she began, "and this is about a girl named Ella. We went to high school together. She was quiet, awkward, always alone. I never asked her why. I never saw her pain. And honestly, I made it worse." She paused, eyes wet. "Tonight, I watched her speech. I watched the world celebrate her. And I realized something. She didn't change. She just finally got seen for who she always was. And I just want to say I'm sorry." Mila ended the video, posted it with the caption, "To the girl I ignored, the world sees you now. And I finally do too." She didn't expect it to go anywhere. But the internet had other plans. Within 12 hours, it had over 1 million views. People commented things like, "This is what accountability looks like. Thank you for showing the other side of the story. We need more Milas who are willing to say sorry." But the most important comment came from Ella herself. "Thank you for your message. It means more than you know. I forgive you." Ella had seen it, and she meant every word. Because the truth was, she remembered Mila. She remembered the hallway laughter, the whispers, the way it made her shrink inside her own skin. But now, hearing those words, "I'm sorry," felt like something broken finally closing gently. That same week, a youth counselor named Janice reached out to both Mila and Ella with an idea. "What if you'd have told your story together?" she asked, one from the quiet girl's view, one from the one who got it wrong. At first, Mila was hesitant. She didn't feel worthy. But Ella encouraged her. "You're not the same person you were," Ella said softly. "Neither am I." So, they did it. They stood side by side at a small school auditorium, facing a room full of students. Mila spoke first. "I judged Ella because she was different. I confused silence for weakness. I confused stillness for emptiness. I didn't see the fire inside her, and for that, I carry regret." Then Ella spoke. "Mila's words hurt me, but I also know they came from fear. Fear of being different. Fear of what she didn't understand. And that fear lives in many of us." She looked around the room. "But here's the truth. You can hurt someone and still be capable of change. And you can forgive someone without forgetting who you are." The students stood and clapped, not out of politeness, but because something real had just happened. After the event, a girl approached them. She had tear-streaked cheeks and trembling hands. "I've been bullied too," she whispered to Ella. "But hearing you, and hearing her, gave me hope." Ella knelt down, held the girl's hands, and said, "You are not invisible, and your kindness has power." Milo looked on, silent, humbled, learning. Words spread. Schools began inviting them to speak. The sessions weren't just about bullying. They were about transformation, growth, seeing people, really seeing them. They called it the Quiet Bridge. One afternoon, as they walked out of a school together, Mila turned to Ella. "You know," she said, "I used to think being loud made me powerful." Ella smiled. "And now I think listening is louder than speaking." Ella laughed, gently. "Then we've both grown." But while their journey was unfolding beautifully, something else was happening behind the scenes. A major television producer, known for creating documentary series about unsung heroes, had been following Ella's rise, and she had a bold idea. Not just an interview, not just a clip, a full-length film. Ella said no at first. She didn't want cameras in her face. She didn't want to be turned into a product. But when she shared the idea with Keanu, he said something that stayed with her. "If it's done right, it won't be about you. It'll be about everyone who thought they were too small to matter." Ella thought about the girl in the auditorium, the messages from strangers, the letters that said, "You gave me hope." She finally said yes, but only under one condition. "This isn't a film about me. It's about the quiet people who keep the world turning, the ones who edit, organize, clean, care, and love without asking for applause." The producer agreed. Filming began quietly. No dramatic lights, no scripted moments, just real ones. Ella working at her desk, speaking in classrooms, sitting at cafes with Keanu, walking with Mila through parks, laughing about old memories and how far they'd come. Keanu didn't take a lead role. He stayed in the background, supporting, guiding, respecting her space. "This is your story now," he told her, and she believed it. The film was titled Soft Steps, The Power of Quiet. But just before the final scene was shot, Ella received a letter in a small white envelope. It had no return address. Inside was a simple handwritten note. "You fixed my presentation years ago, but you also fixed something in me. I was a stranger in the back row that day. I never spoke to you, but I watched. And now I teach my students to see the quiet ones because of you." Ella sat on her bed holding the letter, eyes full of tears. The kindness she gave in silence had echoed further than she ever imagined, and someone she never met had carried it forward. As filming wrapped, Ella stood in the center of an empty theater, notebook in hand. She looked into the camera and whispered, "We are never truly invisible. Even in silence, we leave echoes." What she didn't know was that the premiere of the film would spark something even bigger, something that would bring her full circle and take her back to the place where she first fixed that broken presentation. The night of the premiere arrived quietly. No red carpets, no flashbulbs, no big fanfare. Just soft lights, handwritten signs, and the buzz of something genuine in the air. The theater was small but filled with people who cared: students, teachers, quiet workers, janitors, nurses, librarians, single parents, all the ones who kept life moving without needing recognition. Ella stood outside the entrance, her hands tucked nervously in the pockets of her long coat. She watched the guests walk in, smiling at her gently, some stopping to say thank you, others simply nodding with eyes that spoke louder than words. Inside, the chairs were ranged in soft rows. Booth 3 from the original conference hall had been recreated at the center of the stage, a tribute to the moment everything began. Keanu arrived quietly, as always. He walked up to her, holding 2 cups of tea. "Green tea, right?" he asked. Ella nodded. "You remembered." He smiled. "You remembered my presentation first." As the lights dimmed and the film began, Ella sat in the back row, heart pounding. She didn't know how she would feel seeing herself on a big screen. She worried about how her voice would sound, how people would react. But as the first scenes unfolded, the footage of her fixing slides, speaking in schools, sharing soft truths, a calm washed over her. This wasn't about ego. This was about light. Not the kind that blinds, but the kind that glows gently and reminds people they are not alone. The audience watched in silence. They leaned forward. Some wiped tears. Some held hands. When the scene played of Mila's video apology, the crowd gasped. And when the camera cut to Ella's forgiveness, people nodded. Healing had unfolded in front of them, not through anger or shouting, but through honesty and listening. The final scene showed Ella at her desk, writing in her notebook with soft music playing in the background. Then the screen faded to black, and her voice echoed, "We are never too small to matter. We just need someone to notice." The room stood in applause, not for a celebrity, not for spectacle, but for truth. Afterward, people came up one by one, sharing their own silent stories. A retired security guard talked about how he always held the door open for students. A young man whispered that he used to feel invisible until he heard Ella speak. Someone placed a letter in her hand. She opened it after most people had left. "I was once the girl who never raised her hand. Now I'm becoming a teacher, so I can see the ones who sit in the back." Ella held the note to her chest. As she walked outside for air, Mila joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You did it," Mila whispered. "We did it," Ella said. Keanu came out a moment later, hands in his coat pockets. He looked at both of them and said softly, "I think this is just the beginning." But Ella wasn't sure what else there could be. She had shared her story, traveled, spoken to children, stood on stages. What more could possibly come, she found out 2 weeks later. An invitation arrived from the same conference where it all began. The same place where she had fixed Keanu's slides, hiding in the shadows. "Dear Ella, we'd be honored if you would return to speak at this year's summit. Booth 3 is yours, if you want it." She stared at the screen, stunned. The girl who once avoided eye contact was now being asked to stand at the center. She called Keanu. "I'm scared," she said. "Good," he replied gently. "That means it matters." So she accepted. The day of the event, she walked into the familiar hall. The floors still creaked the same. The lights buzzed quietly above. She passed the tech booth, where she once worked silently, fixing the broken slides that started it all. This time, her name was on the screen. Keynote speaker, Ella Wren, the quiet editor, who changed the conversation, stepped onto the stage, her heart beating fast, notebook in hand. "A few years ago," she began, "I walked into this very hall and saw something broken on a screen. I fixed it. Not because anyone asked me to, but because something in me said, 'Make this better.'" She looked out at the crowd, hundreds of faces, all listening. "I didn't know the man whose slides I fixed. I didn't even know his name. I was just a shy assistant who thought no one noticed me." She paused. "But someone did." She looked over at Keanu, sitting near the side of the stage. He gave her the smallest, proudest smile. "I've learned something since then," she continued. "Quiet doesn't mean weak. Stillness doesn't mean empty. And invisibility doesn't mean unworthy." A wave of emotion moved through the audience. You don't have to be loud to lead. You don't have to be famous to matter. Sometimes, the people who whisper end up changing the world. When she finished, the crowd stood again. But it wasn't just applause this time. It was gratitude. Outside the hall, reporters waited. Some asked if she planned to write a book. Others asked what her next big step would be. But Ella didn't think in terms of big. She thought in terms of true. She answered simply, "I just want to keep helping quietly." Later that night, Keanu walked her to the edge of the parking lot. "There's one more thing," he said, reaching into his jacket. "I've been holding on to this." He handed her a small flash drive. "What is it?" she asked. "The original presentation, the one you fixed." She looked at it, confused. "But why give it to me now?" He smiled. "Because you didn't just edit it. You saved it. And now it belongs to both of us." Ella held the drive in her palm, feeling its weight. It was more than digital files. It was a symbol of a moment. The moment she chose to care when no one was watching. They hugged gently. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered. "Thank you for showing me what seeing really means," he replied. But just before she left, Keanu said something else. Double quotes Ella. "I'm writing something new, and I can't do it without you." Her heart fluttered. "What is it?" "Not a talk, not a movie," he said. "Something bigger, something global, and it starts with one word, ripple." She didn't know what that meant yet, but she knew one thing. She was ready. 3 months later, Ella stood on the rooftop of a building in New York City, watching the sun set behind the skyline. Her breath clouded softly in the cold air. In her hand, she held a simple envelope. Inside it were the final plans for something she never imagined she would help build, something called Project Ripple. The idea had started as a conversation over tea between Ella and Keanu, but it had grown into something so much larger, a global movement. Not about fame, not about speed, not about shouting. It was about kindness, quiet, thoughtful, intentional kindness. Project Ripple would help young people in every corner of the world, especially those who felt invisible, forgotten, unheard, find ways to tell their stories, support each other, and lead from where they stood. And it would all begin with a small act, one that anyone could do. A handwritten letter, one letter of encouragement, care, or forgiveness, written by one person and passed on to another. No social media tag, no need for credit, just a ripple. And it was Ella's idea. Keanu had given her full creative control. He said, "You know how this should feel. You've lived it." They built a team together. Mila came on board too, leading workshops in schools and guiding former bullies to become bridge builders. David, Keanu's friend, helped organize logistics. Volunteers signed up from over 40 countries. Teachers, bus drivers, nurses, students, and retirees, all wanting to be part of something bigger. The website went live one quiet morning under a soft blue sky. Project Ripple, one kind act, one quiet change, one world connected. Within a week, they had over 100,000 participants. People began writing letters. A boy in Norway wrote to his bus driver, thanking her for the warm smile every morning. A woman in Japan wrote to her childhood piano teacher, saying her music saved her spirit. A teenager in Uganda wrote to a local farmer who shared food with his family when they had none. One by one, stories poured in, and soon, the world was listening. Newspapers picked it up. News anchors talked about it. Celebrities began writing their own ripples, but without signing their names. It became a challenge, not to be seen, but to make someone else feel seen. And right in the heart of it all was Ella. Still soft-spoken, still writing in her notebook. But now, with millions following the message she helped create. Keanu called her one evening. He was on the other side of the world, but his voice was calm and clear through the line. "You know what this means, right?" he said. "What?" she asked. "It means you changed the world. With one fix, one act." Ella smiled. "I think I just reminded people how powerful small things are." But there was one more thing. One final moment neither of them saw coming. It began with a handwritten letter. This one wasn't sent through the Project Ripple website. It was placed gently on the desk of a teacher in a small village school in India. Inside, the letter read, "I grew up thinking I didn't matter. My father left. My school forgot me. I stopped speaking. Then one day, our teacher showed us a video of a girl named Ella. She was quiet, like me. She changed the world without shouting. So I wrote my first letter today. I think I might want to be a writer. Maybe someone will read my words and feel less alone." The teacher scanned the letter and shared it with the Ripple team. Ella read it while sitting at her favorite cafe. She didn't speak for a long time. She just sat there, holding the printed page close to her heart, eyes glistening. "This," she whispered, "this is the echo." Keanu arrived minutes later. He'd just landed in town for a surprise visit. She handed him the letter without saying a word. He read it and nodded. "That's it. That's the whole reason." They walked outside together, the evening light stretching golden across the pavement. "You started with a broken slide," he said. "And now this." Ella looked around at the city, at the strangers passing by, at the small acts happening everywhere. Someone helping an old woman cross the street, a child holding a door open for a neighbor, a musician playing gently on the corner without asking for coins. "It's not just me," Ella said. "It's all of them." And Keanu replied with the words she'd never forget. "Yes, but they saw it first because you showed them how." A few months later, the United Nations invited her to speak. She stood in a room full of world leaders, scientists, and influencers, and she wore the same soft blue dress from the day she gave her first talk. No teleprompters, no big production. Just her. Not famous. Not loud. But powerful. And when she opened her notebook, she began with this: "I was once the girl who fixed broken things in silence. But now I know silence isn't empty. It's full of small voices. And when we listen to them, really listen, we remember who we are. The room gave her a standing ovation. But more than that, the world kept rippling. New schools joined. New letters were written. And somewhere in a classroom, another shy girl quietly wrote her first story because she believed someone, somewhere, would care enough to read it. Ella never stopped being who she was. She didn't become a celebrity. She didn't start shouting. She didn't try to shine. She just kept fixing, kept caring, kept noticing, and that was more than enough to move the world.